Serious, what has been your scariest encounter with another human being? I was a truck driving trainer. I picked up a student who within the first 20 minutes asked me about a shooting at a company yard and how much damage a fully loaded truck and trailer would do at full speed. I sat next to him for literally 7 hours while he drove. He didn't say anything. I'd ask him questions, but I'd get 2-sentence answers, and then nothing. I have never been so scared or uncomfortable in my entire life. Dropped him off the next day. Said he had been recording me texting, was sending my fiancée GPS locations and selfies to let her know I was still alive and okay. He said he was going to send it to my company. I had been recording the entire exchange myself because I was so scared of what might happen. I sent it to my company and he was fired the next day. I couldn't sleep for a couple of days because I don't know if he had followed me home or not. He was recently rehired and not even a day with a trainer. He was dropped off in another state. I was told he is no longer eligible to work for my company. I was driving with my friend through a popular park in our city when we came to a dead-end parking lot trying to find a certain trail. We started to turn around when a man who was at the trunk of his car ran up to the passenger side of my car, panicking and throwing his arms up. I immediately think has broken down or needs help, or maybe something is wrong with my car. I lock the doors and roll the window down a crack to hear what the issue was. When he came closer, I got a very uneasy feeling. The guy just didn't seem right. He smiled and asked if we had ever been to some store in the local area. He offered us candy and tells us to take a look at what we wanted in the back of his car. What a cliche. Keep in mind, I was 21 or so at the time, not a child. At that point I'm accelerating to get the frick out of there, and as we're pulling away there was another man coming down the hill with a huge stick in his hand and immediately tried to flag us down too. I sped off and saw them talking together and watch as I drove away. On the road out, we saw a woman jogging towards where we had just had this super creepy encounter and I pulled over immediately and told her to turn around. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I had just let her jog into a weird ass situation like that. I have no idea if those men wanted to kidnap someone or kill or what, but I'm glad we got the frick out of there. I haven't been to that park since. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the gold. I'm a young woman myself, and I would hate for someone to drive past me knowing what lies ahead. I still regret not calling the cops and reporting the suspicious behavior. I hope they never actually hurt anyone. I was sitting at a coffee shop one afternoon minding my own business when a stranger came in the door, awkwardly glanced in my direction, then looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're being watched." My heart jumped and I just kind of responded in fear, "Excuse me? You're being watched?" He proclaimed once more, but this time a little more sternly. I must have had this look of terror on my face because he quickly chuckles and tells me someone is standing outside the window behind me staring at me. I looked behind me and it's my brother. I was never in any danger, but observed another girl almost get kidnapped at Walmart. Back when I was in high school, my mom, dad, kid brother, and I went grocery shopping at Walmart. A teenage girl who was about my age at the time approached us and awkwardly said she thought some sketchy men had been following her around the store. I guess my family doesn't look very threatening because she asked my dad if he would be willing to walk her out to her car. She seemed embarrassed and kept saying she was probably overreacting, but my dad was quick to say that he would never want me, his teenage daughter, walking out alone if I suspected someone was following me. My mom, brother, and I stayed with our cart, and my dad went out into the parking lot with the girl. Several minutes later, they both came back inside, and we knew something must have happened. It turns out that an old van was parked and idling right next to her car. When the driver and passenger noticed the girl was with my dad, it sped away. The police were called, the girl's parents showed up, and my dad and the girl provided statements to the officer. The officer applauded the girl for going with her gut by asking my dad to walk her out, because based on the evidence, there very well could have been a much scarier ending to the story. Meanwhile, the incident freaked my parents out so much that I wasn't allowed to go to the store alone after dark until I graduated from high school. Lol. Edit. My first Reddit silver. Thank you, kind stranger. Additional information that might be relevant. This happened in January or February of 2010 in northern Colorado. We never found out if somebody was caught after the incident, but after speaking to my dad he confirmed that neither him or the girl had remembered the license plate, although he did recall it was a co-plate. He wanted to reiterate that it was 150% the girl taking a proactive approach to her own safety that saved her life that day. Mentally disturbed abusive older brother beat me regularly as a kid, but one time it got so bad I actually fought back, and he pinned me down and tried to cut my throat, but our older sister walked in at the exact moment it counted and stopped him. He had just barely started the cut. The part that freaked me up the most though was my mom let him back in the house 2 weeks later, after receiving no psychological treatment at all. I was 7. I developed pretty abnormal behaviors in the attempt to feel more secure, and now even as an adult I cannot sleep in an unlocked room. There's an abandoned hotel near where I live. It closed about 10 years ago, and it's been knocked down now sadly. I went in with my friends. When it was still up we were about 12, and we snuck in for like the 1000th time. We went into the old kitchen and there was this guy just there with his back turned in a parka. He looked about 20, and he just slowly started turning around, 1 foot at a time. When he turned around fully, he was wearing one of those cheap theater masks. We freaking booked it, and I cut my leg off the fence we climbed through. When we got about half a kilometer away my friend just started crying because he was so shocked. TBH, I think that guy was just exploring and heard us and decided to scare us, but still it was awful. Scariest encounter wasn't an encounter. Worked for a rent to own furniture place between my junior and senior year in college. I'm 63, 280 pounds, so I'm built for lifting. The other delivery guy was a prison guard before, so he was fairly well built as well. Now, 95% of the job is delivering furniture. However, since rent to own requires, rent, you tend to get those who get behind on their payments. If they get too far behind, we pick up their stuff. Most people are actually happy, since that means the phone calls from the manager stop. Some would rather run and hide. We've tracked people across town, to different towns, even one that moved across the country. No idea how the manager and corporate did that. So one day, we get told that after we make a delivery, we are supposed to check out an address. Supposedly, this girl and her baby daddy are 8 months behind and keep moving to avoid us. The place is out in the country, but we live in a rural part of the world, so that's no big deal. We find the place with a half-mile long driveway leading to a trailer house. There's a truck in the yard, doors open, hood up, lights on. Someone was working on it recently. We also notice that the front door to the house is wide odd when it's 95 plus outside. There is absolutely nobody around this place. Then, on the picnic table just outside the front door, we see a pretty new box of shotgun shells. It's open, and a few are missing. Now, we had pulled up to this place, got out of the truck, but hadn't said a word. We just looked at each other, got back in the truck, and drove back to the store. We both just had that feeling that something bad was in the air. A couple months later, after I had quit and went back to college, I saw that girl and baby daddy had been picked up for cooking and selling meth. Crazy enough to shoot us? Probably. My boyfriend and I and one of his friends had been partying in the woods behind another friend's apartment complex. We were leaving and had just gotten into his buddy's pickup. I was sitting in the middle. We heard yelling, and suddenly there was a man pointing a rifle with a freaking bayonet on it through the driver's side window. He was carrying on about us partying in the woods, or whatever, but I was mostly focused on watching my boyfriend out of the corner of my eye. He spent a lot of time thinking about fighting, and he had previously told me about his theory on how a full beer can could be used as a weapon. I could see his hand sliding down towards the bag of beer on the floor. I thought, holy shoot, he's going to try to bonk this nutcase on the head, and him going to get shot, or stabbed, or both. Fortunately, our friend started talking calmly to bayonet guy, apologizing and asking if he'd been in the service, saying he was a vet too. "Hey man, you don't want to get in trouble here," etc. The dude ended up wandering off, and I didn't get to find out whether you can disable an armed man with a can of Budweiser. Forever grateful to you, Joe. That time I got mistaken for a gang member by a rival gang and got surrounded by 15 to 20 guys with weapons. Thought my life was gonna end then and there, but somehow managed to talk some sense into them and convince them I wasn't who they were looking for. They ended telling me I was real, all gave me pounds, got back in their van and drove off. I was about 16 at the time and my family went on a vacation to Destin, Florida. The weather wasn't doing so well, and the ocean was going nuts. They had the red flags out, but as long as you stayed close to shore the waves weren't too bad. Many people were having fun with the aggressive waves and body surfing in. When I was running out to catch a wave back in, I jumped to go over a wave, and I saw a young girl a bit farther out than I had been going. I got a weird feeling and decided to go out a bit farther to see what was up. I yelled to see if she was okay. She didn't say a word and still had the scared look on her face. I swam out to her, and as soon as I was close she reached for me, and I grabbed her. I pulled her close with one arm as a wave crashed over us, and we both went under. As the wave cleared, I took a few steps towards shore. I was about 6 feet at the time and the waves were well over my head, so when the next one came I just pushed the girl up with one arm and kept her head above water. I kept repeating the process and soon found myself taking a few steps forward, but getting pulled back out a bit each time. After I noticed this, and as I was getting more tired, I started to get really scared. But thankfully those thoughts didn't come true, and soon a man came running out towards us and grabbed her from me to help get us in. I was then able to make it back and to calm both my mom and the girl's mom down, who were crying hysterically on the shore. My dad threatened to kill me with a tire iron once. He had me backed into a corner and the tire iron in his hand. I knew the son of a bitch was crazy enough to do it, but I didn't care. I told him to do it. Kill me then, asshole, he pussied out, and I walked away. Wasn't till about 10 minutes later, when I was driving away, I broke down shaking and crying. Why it happened? When I was about 22, I told him I was leaving/moving out. They had legal guardianship of me because I'm disabled. He didn't want me to leave because they got government assistance and tax breaks for taking care of me. I spent a few months in the hospital, but was moved to a group home after a while, and am more high functioning now than I have ever been. So I do not regret it. I was coming out of my local Walmart at maybe 9:30 p.m. to a dark, only partially occupied parking lot. It was nice outside since it was summer, and I usually park far enough away to give myself a walk. I should mention that I'm a fairly small thin female in my 20s, as it seems important later. My car was parked across the aisle, or whatever it's called, from a couple of others. A small sedan directly beside a large, very dark SUV. A lady probably in her 30s was standing between the sedan and SUV with a shopping cart with a baby carrier inside. I started loading my groceries and stuff into my car, and the lady started calling out to me, "Hey miss, can you help me?" I immediately got bad vibes and didn't approach. I asked what's up. How can I help, without moving from near my car. She was pulling at the baby carrier in the cart and apparently struggling. Can you help me get this out of the cart? I can't get it out. It seemed weird to me, since that more than likely wasn't her first time using the carrier, and since I was pretty obviously smaller and likely less strong than she was. That might be an unfair assumption to make, but it still seemed weird to me. Then, the light in the front seat of the SUV came on. I told her, "You can probably ask the person in that car. I don't think I'm strong enough to help you." She seemed frustrated, and I was getting a bad feeling from the situation, so I was starting to get into my car. She shouted again, "I can't get my baby out. Can't you help me? I feel really bad." If she really needed help, but I just pulled the car door shut and called my mom right away. It felt like some sort of setup for human trafficking or something. No actual baby noises or sign of an actual baby, and the way the cars were parked, and he dock and SUV. I might be paranoid and overthinking, but I just didn't get a good feeling from any of it. I'm sorry if that lady and her baby really needed help, but I'm sure a Walmart employee would have helped if that were the case. We had self-locking doors in college, but I had went down the hallway to the bathroom to brush my teeth, get ready for bed. I had left my door slightly ajar, so I wouldn't have to bring my keys with me. When I got back to my room I could just sense someone was in there. Sure enough, a big drunk guy stumbles out of my closet and I realized that my door was now locked behind me and that even yelling for help would take a few minutes. While he for sure was trying to get amorous, and no, I didn't know him personally, just had seen him around campus, he wasn't being too pushy yet. All I remember was trying to get him to leave, and within a minute or two a girl was knocking on my door and he let me open it. She did know him and basically told him to scram, which he did. I asked her how she knew, and she said she thought she saw him wander in there and came to check on me. All I can say is she was angel, because I've always felt like that night would not have ended well for me. I was home alone at my college house. My roommates were all gone for the night for whatever reason. I had a girl over and we got drunk. She Ubered home and I passed out on the couch in the living room. When I woke up, the TV and my backpack that my laptop was in were gone. Both were in the room I passed out in. Some dude literally robbed my house right in front of me, passed out on the couch. Felt pretty scared when I woke up and realized what had happened. I was at a 24-hour donut shop in my city where homeless people tend to hang out during the middle of the night, and my friend and I walked there drunk off our SS, and as we were ordering, a homeless guy started screaming nonsensical things at the cashier and the other homeless people in the store. He then turned towards my friend and I and pulled out a knife and started waving it at us and screaming gibberish at us. I was drunk and confused and just stood there with no clue what to do, kind of chuckling because it was so surreal to me, while my friend started crying. We were the only women in the store, and as soon as he pulled the knife on us and started walking towards us and swinging it at us, all the other homeless men got up and held him back. He was probably about a foot from my face when the owner leaped over the counter and escorted us out through the back and walked us to the nearest public place still open and waited with us while we called an Uber. He apologized profusely, and next time we went back during the day he recognized us, gave us free donuts, and told how that was not the first time that had happened in the store. I was like 6 or 7 when this happened. I was homesick when my mom, brother, and I were living at my grandfather's house. My aunt and her husband lived there too. For whatever reason, my uncle decided that he wanted to pick a fight with my mom. Things started getting really heated, and my mom took my and my baby brother back to her room and she locked us in there and pulled out the handgun my paternal grandmother bought her years ago. He started making all of these threats that he would call CPS on her for being a horrible mom, that it was her fault my deadbeat father left and never came back, that I would grow up to be a horse just like your mother, and a bunch of other horrible things that I'd rather not remember. The entire time my uncle is beating on the door, threatening to beat my mom if she didn't unlock the door that instant. She told him she had a gun and that she would use it if he didn't leave us alone. He said that he was calling the police right then and that they'd take her to jail and put me and my brother in foster care. He said that he would go get one of his hunting rifles and start blindly shooting through the door and use the defense, that he felt like his life was in danger. The most terrifying thing for me as a kid was that my mom felt like we were in danger enough for her to actually grab the gun in the first place. She hates guns, especially since her younger sister used one to commit suicide. He backed off a few minutes after my mom told him she had the gun, but those were the longest minutes of my life. The first time I tried to leave my ex, he was dead in the face and eyes and calmly told me I wasn't leaving, before beating the ever-living shit out of me, attempting to stab me a few times before losing his nerve for it, then plopped me in, I'm guessing, a closet and locked the door. Still don't remember how long I was in there and don't remember being let out, just ending up waking in bed. Finally got away from him for good a few weeks later.